But John, I gotta make sure I got enough, so don't
Welcome everyone to do
anybody.
Jonesboro Rotary. And if I could ask Chris Lambert to do the Rotary prayer. Oh, sorry, Chris. I want to watch
hand a mouthful. You read it specifically.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Service above self. Open our eyes that we may, so that we may see. Open our ears that we may hear. Touch our hearts that we may love. Clear our minds that we may think. Strengthen our hands that we may work.
Okay, thanks, Chris. First thing I'd like to do is ask Larry to come up and tell us about Rotarians in Action. And I think Terry's going to show this video.
Yeah, and Doug has given me 30 seconds to talk.
Right, on it.
All right, here's the deal. We said we're going to do Rotary in Action videos, and it's taken a while for us to get a feel for exactly how we're going to do it. But we want to try to include all 50 members in this club eventually in this. But we needed to give you some kind of guideline is what we want to do. And you need to give us some feedback. The first one that we did with Jim. Let's hear it for Jim. We figured that he would be a good one to start with because he does so much for us and Shelter Box and for whatever. So Terry has done this for us and has worked for better than 2 months to get it as good as we can find it. And we've also found that it's much better not to do them here, but to do them in Terry's studio. So it has taken us a while, but now we're going to be on a roll now that we've gotten pretty much what we want. And John's going to be next up. So Terry, can you show us Jim?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, here, and here's what we're asking for. We're asking for feedback on this, and please offer constructive criticism, because then Terry will do the final edit. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you might have to be quiet a little bit because the Flame Steakhouse speakers are not working, so we have to use the speaker from the computer.
After retiring from the Air Force, I realized that I needed to figure out a way to assimilate into my local community. I was looking for a civic organization that had the same interest that I did, taking care of people and becoming part of the community. As like many Rotary members, my first exposure to Rotary was to be invited to a luncheon. After several visits, it appeared to me that Rotary would be a good fit for Jim Milner. And one of the very special things about Rotary is the speakers we have in each meeting. The speakers give us updates about what's going on in the community and what's going on in Rotary for your particular Rotary club. During one of these speeches, I was exposed to a relief organization called Shelter Box. Shelter Box delivers disaster aid to people who have been displaced due to natural or man-made disasters. As a result of my exposure to Shelter Box, I joined Shelter Box as an ambassador and have served as an ambassador for the last 10 years. I have also made 2 deployments, one to Nepal and one to the Philippines to deliver disaster aid to flood victims. When Don and I decided to move from Florida to North Carolina, finding a Rotary Club became my first priority. Finding Jonesboro Rotary was absolutely perfect. It helped us learn about the community, it allowed us to meet new friends, and it also allowed us to become assimilated into the community. One of the great things about Rotary and Jonesboro, for example, is that we donate $20,000 to the community.
Wow. Quiet.
Through our goal The Pots and Gold is a raffle where we actually give back to the community and the participants over $5,000 throughout the 6-month period that we conduct the raffle. I'm very proud of my 20 years experience in Rotary. I'm very proud of the Jonesboro Rotary Club. If you want to meet some really special people, stop by the Flame at Thursday at noon and have lunch with the Jonesboro Rotary.
That was really good.
Okay, now, here's the question. We laughed at the money, but is it too much? Does it last too long?
It's too much money.
I mean, that's part of it. What we're looking at is other organizations coming and saying, can we have a bundle? But should we leave it the way it is?
I would rather,
We could probably cut it a little bit. Yes, Laura?
I would rather see a video panning perhaps of some of the results of our monies, if you will, rather than money falling from the sky and because it makes you laugh. I mean, your first reaction is, oh boy, you know, Rotary just money's falling out of the sky.
But we have a limit, a time frame of 2.5 to 3 minutes, and Chris hasn't done the voiceover yet at the beginning and the end. And this is 3 minutes as it is, so it might have to be cut down. I don't know if we have enough time.
The graphic about Jim's deployment to the Philippines looked like he was on vacation. It had that really good-looking beach. You know, that was kind of looks like he got a paid vacation.
Air Force, it was vacation.
That's a good point. We could use, I've got a picture of an outrigger with tents in it that we could put in there and substitute. So that's a very good point.
Okay, and what we're after is getting the name of Jonesboro Rotary up there and recognized immediately. Should Jim's start, should we cut this and paste it and start it with Donna and I moved to Sanford and Jonesboro Rotary. I mean, he hits Jonesboro Rotary really well, and should that be what we suggest to everybody that's going to be doing this? Start with Jonesboro Rotary, and then get into all the things that you do, because it's pretty easy.
I like the idea of the Rotary connection, getting you into Shelter Box.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Well,
So it does flow nicely. There's no question about it.
What do you think of, as opposed to the big pile of money, put in $20,000 in just a number, that this is what, to show what we.
Well, even
I prefer that.
the $20,000, the $20,000 would be one, but graphically, I mean, popping the $20,000 on there is kind of elementary. But I think if we used either bullet points or still shots that came in during, you know, as you're talking about that, I think that would make for good video. Larry's taking personal. He's never edited video before, obviously, because everybody's a critic, I promise. But I think that would be dynamic and would
Rather than
show.
all the bundles.
Yeah, bundles is that's comic relief.
That's okay.
What you could do is take a bunch of stills of people holding their checks up and show that.
Yeah.
And that's a good point.
What I'd like to see is don't say we give back 20,000. Just have the back of the card. These are the
Last year's
charities, the people who have benefited from our
Yeah.
and that's a bullet point.
That's a very good point.
bullets or a image or something of those who benefit from the funds.
Okay, so the sequence of things for everybody else will run that way, as long as you don't want to start with Jonesboro right away, because we hit Jonesboro right in the middle of these bullet points that we'll give everybody when it's your turn. And John will be coming up as soon as you can get there. We did learn, I think maybe I already said it, you can't do them here because there's too much of a distraction. So you go to Terry's studio and nice background, quiet, and you get it done much faster. But thanks you guys, because you know we worked really hard to get what we thought was a product that made sense to put on social media and really promote ourselves. And so it's taken a couple months in order for us to really get into the sequence we want.
Yeah, and a comment about once this comes out and it's posted on Facebook, put it on your timeline. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, all your friends will see that.
Yeah.
And it'll really kind of multiply.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Okay, if I could ask Jim to come up, we have a couple of things to do. Number one, we need to give Jim a shelter box.
Shelter box.
Shelter box, he's our representative, $1,500 check. And thank you all. And second, let's get us in.
Yeah, let's get a little picture here. Thank you for letting me indulge there. Oh, we got Tracy in the background. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
I get enough exposure.
And second, I wanted to ask Jim if he would talk a little bit about Shelter Box. We put out an email yesterday asking for donations. There's several crises going on, and it continues to multiply. But Jim is committed to matching this amount, which is quite a huge commitment. But Jim, could you talk a little bit
The
about
1,500?
Yes.
No.
Back to?
Yeah.
Yes, he would. Just let me give you the latest update. I'll do it very, very quick. In the Caribbean, our teams are locked down as Maria went through, as you can appreciate. We are expecting 200 tents to be flown into Barbuda today to be used by the cleanup crews, because the island is basically deserted. So the tents will be used by the people that are going to be cleaning up the island. A team is sailing with the Coast Guard to Dominica, which was the worst hit by Maria 48 hours ago. We are arriving in Dominican Republic today, and we're partnering with Habitat for Humanity. In Antigua and Bermuda, we're distributing shelter kits to Dominican Republic. Antigua and Barbuda, there are 300 shelter kits going to Antigua, 200 to St. Kitts and Nevis, and there are 1,500 shelter kits in Panama that we're going to move based upon the assessment teams figuring out where to put them. One of the big issues, as you can appreciate, is not just dropping things on the beach, is trying to figure out where we can most effectively distribute the aid, the limited aid that we have. As you can appreciate, the numbers I've given you, is only a drop in the bucket to what is really going to be needed. But the whole idea will be to do the maximum, get the maximum effectiveness out of the crews. And after about 20 years, we've really figured out how to get this done and work with people on the ground. And finally, we've got people on the ground right now looking at Mexico to see what can be, or what is possible to be done for Mexico.
And it is, I did talk to the Rotarians in 4170. All of the ones in the clubs that we know are right. A lot of them are involved in a lot of that rescue effort down south. If you noticed the news last night, you saw several Rotary jackets of people, and one was at the school and the other one was at that apartment building that was collapsed. So our Rotarians are active. I told them, let us know where we can help.
I've received a couple of checks to Shelter Box from members, and I will process those with the club donation so that everybody gets credit. The individual gets credit and the club gets credit for the total donation. We'll pass the bucket and we'll go one more week. We'll go to next week as a final wrap up, and then I will make a submission for everybody. Thank you all very much.
Laura, Sergeant Laura.
Take it away. Take it away, Laura. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Jonesboro Rotary. I'm happy to be the sergeant at arms again today. A few visitors that I'm pleased to welcome today include Jen Bridges, William Sturkey, Brian Allen. These fine folks are all guests of Sheriff Tracy today, so we thank him for bringing some guests along. We're looking forward to the program, and we have a very special Master Cole Spike. Well done. We've had several announcements already this afternoon. Do we have other announcements to come before the club at this time?
I have one quick one. The Sanley Sunrise Rotary Club, before we merged, we had bought a sound system for our club that we used occasionally. Didn't really need it because we had so few members. But I still have that sound system at home, and I just wanted to know if anybody here could use that. Perhaps we could give that to someone, or take it to CUOC and have them try to sell it. It's got a speaker that's about 2.5 feet high, 2 microphones, and it's a pretty good system. We paid quite a bit for it. So, but it's just sitting in my garage. So, if anybody could use something like that, or know of someone who could. And if not, I'm going to take it to the COOC thrift store.
The Temple Teens have a traveling kit. It would be, that sounds smaller than what they have, which might be very useful.
Probably is a little bit smaller, yeah.
That, because some of the times when they go, they have very limited space. So that may well be something that they could put to use on a very regular basis.
Well, if it stays kind of within our reach, if we need it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, by all means. I mean, we lend some of our stuff like that. But yeah, if we housed it there and we needed it for an event, there wouldn't be any problem.
That gets it out of his garage.
We can put it in our garage.
Should I bring it next week, or do you want me to bring it to the theater, or?
If you want to bring it here, I can pick it up. If you want to drop it off at the theater, that'd be fine as well.
Okay.
That'd be good. That'd be great.
And sold. All right, what other announcements can we solve for everybody? Okay, perfect. Yes.
All right, I've actually got several announcements. First of all, I threw down the gauntlet at Sanford Rotary on Tuesday and invited them to put together a team for the dodgeball tournament on October 14th. We're locked and cocked. The response to that has been very strong. We did 18 teams last time. We're hoping to double that this time around. October 14th, we're going to kick off at 10 a.m. I would hope that we put at least one team together here from Jonesboro Rotary. The other thing, though, if you're interested in helping and don't necessarily want to play, I have gotten quite a bit of response from the schools this time around. The timing's a little bit better because we're not up against the end of the school year, and we may have some groups of students from LEC and a couple of the elementary and middle schools that may need help with entry fees. It's $50 per team, so if you're interested in helping but don't necessarily want to go get hit in the face with a ball, let me know and we'll find some place to put your money to good use. I have posters in the car. If anybody wants to put one up in their place of business or knows someplace good that would be to put them up, let me know and I'll get you as many as you care to have. That's the first little bit. Secondly, Footloose opened last week. We opened our 17-18 season at the Temple. I was telling John as we were coming in, 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago when we opened with the Music Man, or with Oklahoma rather. That was the very first time in the entire history of Temple Theater that we opened on opening night with a sellout crowd. And it was kind of hard for me to believe that in all the history of the Temple that was the case, but it was, and we went back and we looked it up. At this point, we've gotten to the point where almost every opening night is a sellout. So thank you guys for your support. There's nothing better than hanging that tonight's show is sold out sign on the
Chris,
doors.
it was terrific.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Come see it 2 or 3 more times. We do run for 2 more weeks. Sales been good. This is a good show. It's high energy. We pivot into the show that I'm most excited about, which is Clue is our next one. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And so that you know, Clue has like 200, I can't do the math real quickly, like 264 different possible endings. And the audience will vote at intermission to decide who done it, with what weapon, in what room, and the only person that will know as part of the cast is the narrator, and the rest of the cast has to figure it out on the fly based on what the narrator says, so they kind of uncover what's going on with the audience. So it's a show that a lot of people we hope will come back and see 2 and 3 times. We're actually working on a ticket package where you can get multiple tickets for less than you would for face value. But look forward to that. There is a huge fundraiser coming up at the Temple on October 7th. The Miss North Carolina pageant system reached out to us months ago and asked us to do a fundraiser with them for the Miss North Carolina Scholarship Fund. That is October 7th. It's a black tie affair. There'll be champagne, there'll be food, there'll be some silent auctions and things like that, and there will be plenty of beauty queens on hand. There'll be 5 former Miss North Carolinas and the reigning Miss North Carolina. There will be musical performances, dance performances throughout the night. This black tie affair is $75 a head. We're raising money for the Miss North Carolina pageant, which is interesting because we're usually raising money for the Temple Theater. It's funny how it works. So please put that on your calendars. And one last announcement. Sean Williams came in and gave a kind of teased and told you that he and I have been working on a charter school project. That charter application has been finished and submitted. It was about 6 months worth of work. And we had a very small ceremony just this Tuesday night. And we met with people from the public who came in and asked questions. And we kind of took their temperature, and we had a really, really good turnout for that. And it was a really successful event. So now fingers are crossed, and we'll find out in May whether or not we've gotten that charter. We assume 100% that we're going to, but we'll see how it works out. Thank you, guys.
All fantastic announcements. What else do we have to celebrate?
Quick announcement, we had done our inaugural Character Plus meeting at Edwards Elementary this past Tuesday. Don Douglas, Larry Aiken, and myself had gone to Edwards Elementary. We had featured, the character word of the month is respect. And we had featured Coach Cates with the Lee County varsity football team. We had 5 student athletes come by, including the same athlete who is going to be going to Notre Dame next year. It was a fantastic event, and the kids, there's 6 5th grade classes this year at Edwards Elementary. The kids ate it up. They asked fantastic questions. These 5 student athletes have an average in excess of 4.0 GPA, and they're all seniors on the Lee County football team. Lee County High football team is a 3A North Carolina, number 3 in the state. They're 5-0. They have 4 shutouts. They have a bye this week, so you can't go tomorrow to go see them, but their next game is at Cummings. It's an away game. But the leadership and what they showed to the 5th graders at Edwards Elementary was fantastic. So
And we've
another great event.
invited them to come.
And we've actually invited them to come
So you can
here,
appreciate
right?
these guys. These guys are smart.
These guys are
They're
sharp.
really smart
So,
kids.
Very nice event. Thank you.
Other announcements from the club. Anything else to come before the club at this moment? Shall we brag? Speaking of dollars flying through the...
Chris, do you want to introduce?
All right, so this is a little bit deeper conversation we're about to have than the normal fare. We've had a lot of arts, and we had beach music last week. I want to tell you, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time introducing the sheriff because you all know him very well. He's a good friend of mine, and I appreciate everything he and his team do. But there's some things going on in our community, across our state, across our country, that I don't think that average citizens are very aware of right now. My wife, because of the work she does as a counselor, is very in tune with it, and we try to stay abreast of what's going on. But I'll start this off by telling you that the sheriff and his team are going to talk to you about opiate abuse today. And that's something that's sort of hypothetical with a lot of people, and they don't really get it. The day I decided we had to have this briefing, I had called the sheriff and said, hey, how bad is it? And he related it to me, and I said, this is something we need to talk about, and more people in the community need to understand. And the impetus for that phone call, my wife sat with me and she said, you're not going to believe this, but Wilmington now has the highest density of opiate abuse in the entire country. That's stunning. And it's hit levels that are going to boggle your mind. And it's important that we be aware, because we need to make sure as a community that our priorities are focused in the right direction, because this has become an epidemic. So without further ado, Sheriff Tracy Carter.
And we're not here to serve any warrants today, so y'all can I have Officer Jim Bridges in the back. She's going to take some pictures. I have about 12,000 followers on Facebook, so we'll give some exposure to the club on that. But before I give my drug agents the floor, and I have Captain Brian Allen and Lieutenant William Sturkey. Just want to say that this is a good community here. Sanford and Lee County is a great place to live and work, but we do have some serious issues going on that we deal with every day. And I think, I believe everybody in here is optimistic about our community, and we can't ever have a defeatist attitude when it comes to crime. You know, I often give the example of fire ants. You know, we're always going to have fire ants, but we can keep them from taking over our yards if we put poison out on them. And that's kind of the attitude we have with this drug problem. We've got to keep fighting it, and we've got to keep it beat back as much as we can. And I don't want to steal any of their thunder. I'm going to go ahead and let them have the floor, and I'm sure you'll have some questions.
How's everybody? Good. Full, everybody full, nobody asleep though. Not yet. Not yet. You just opportunity to get a nap if you need to. You spoke, I mean, you took some of the words, Chris, right out of my mouth and it's a puzzling statistic that right here, 2.5, 3 hours away from us is literally a city that's been nationally recognized as one of the worst places for not only opiate, but heroin addiction, is Wilmington. A place that I went to school at, a place that I know well, that has changed tremendously. But you know, just to kind of put that in perspective, in the United States, some of these statistics bounce back from 2015 because the National Drug Threat Assessment is still coming in as far as what the 2016 findings are, and especially the 17 findings have not been concluded yet. But just over 50,000 people died from opiate and heroin overdoses in 2015. Less people passed away in car crashes. So if you don't think it's an epidemic, across the United States of America, less people died in car crashes and more people died from drug overdoses from opiates. So that puts it into a perspective. So just by number, in 2015, 52,404 people passed away as a drug overdose, and mostly being opiate related. Those car crash numbers are drastically lower at 37,757 people. That's a lot more people from overdoses than there is car crashes. And that, you know, to me, that really puts it into perspective. You start thinking that many more people have passed away from overdose of opiates or heroin related deaths than in car crash. You think car crash happen every day, it would seem, you know, more common that you would think it would be greater. Another statistic is that nearly 80 people across the nation today will pass away from an opiate-related death. In North Carolina alone, they expect 4 a day, putting us at 4 people a day across North Carolina will pass from an opiate abuse overdose. That puts us, if the numbers stay within the trend of 4 a day, if we don't hit, an increase in those, roughly 1,500 people across North Carolina a year. They say that opiate overdose deaths occur at the rate of 1 every 17 minutes across the U.S. You may ask, who does it happen to? How does it happen? Just like we talked about before in here, I heard someone speaking, I think you were talking earlier about, or no, I think it was Doug was talking to the sheriff about when they were really pushing, back before when they were pushing really to start prescribing pain medication for doctors. And now it's become such an epidemic that we're really starting to backtrack on that now. We're starting to see, for us, even locally here, doctors that we're having to pursue because of the fact that they're overprescribing. They're having deaths occur in their offices during, certain types of situations, whatever, measures they may take in their office. They all do different, they may perform different types of medical evaluations and procedures, but so we're kind of backtracking on that now. What's led to that is an extreme opiate addiction across the nation, which has led to our heroin epidemic, which is, we starting to see this coming up out of Mexico. We're getting fentanyl coming out of China. The synthetic version of this stuff. All this stuff is being mixed with each other. These users are looking for a cheaper way to amend their sickness, their addiction. And they're doing that by substituting these opiates with heroin.
And I think some of the doctors are getting better at checking the database when people come in for pills, but what happens, the pills are a lot more expensive than the heroin. So they figure out they can get the same kind of high and probably better with heroin. So that's what has produced the heroin epidemic that we have right now.
A specific number on that, speaking of the price differences and why people choose to do heroin, which is so much more dangerous because they're unsure of what they're getting at the point. Right now, currently in Sanford, North Carolina, in Lee County, it would cost you approximately $100 to get one dosage unit of a 40 milligram Oxycontin pill. $100 for one pill. Some of these people that need this, that say their addiction causes sickness, to stop withdrawals, they sometimes need 3 or 4 of those before lunch just to overcome the feeling that they have and get to where they need to be to where they're not sick, dealing with addiction. For that same $100, you get 10 bags of heroin.
Is that the prescription price or is that the street price?
That is a street price. That's a street price.
So what's the prescription price?
Well, I would depend
Whatever
on
your insurance.
Yeah, insurance.
Well, so what I'm getting at, folks, is therein lies the black market, doesn't it? Because if they can get Uncle Bob's or Mom's or Dad's pills,
And that's we've had
for $10 or whatever it is,
we've
right?
had people in situations limited,
Yeah.
income
yeah.
that didn't need the stuff, but it was available to them, having the prescriptions, that were selling their prescriptions
You
just
bet.
to have the money.
That's right.
I mean, and honestly, they sat down and I honestly believe them. They're like, hey, the light bill, groceries, things like that, to get through everyday life. We're on, we're retired, Social Security's not enough, this and that, and I mean, it's bad to say, but yeah, in some cases, some people have seen that there is a market for it and make a few bucks, quick few bucks. You may hand some of these out, just so.
Yeah, there's some pamphlets that I put together here for you. Feel free to take those with you. We'll go ahead and pass these other out as well. I'll start on the other side.
These guys make a lot of arrests, a lot of heroin-related arrests, and that's what we have to do. We've got to keep fighting it, and we've got to send the message that if you're doing that here, we're going to go after it.
Tracy, do all doctors have access to that database?
Yes, sir. And I do think that doctors are getting better at checking that database.
Right.
But at one time, when I first took office 10 years ago, we were getting overran with doctor shopping. And I tell you something that I had, I'll tell you a quick story. I was noticing that people were coming to the sheriff's office. This was my first year. And they were filing reports for lost or stolen medication. And I got to, I read the reports and I'm like, what's going on here? Well, what they were doing is they were coming down and they were filing a fictitious report that their medication got stolen or lost, and then they would take the report and go get more medication. So I just stopped doing it. I said, heck, I'm not going to be part of this. I'm not going to enable this pill epidemic. So unless there's extenuating circumstances, we don't take reports for lost or stolen medication anymore. And within the first 30 days of me doing that, I had a young man show up at my office, and I knew him. I remember him from school, and he just started raising Cain. Why won't you file a report? And I said, well, tell me, why do you need this report? Well, I need to go get more medication. I said, have your doctor call me. So he had his doctor call me. And I explained to him what we were doing, that we're no longer going to enable what's going on because, we're smart enough to realize that these people are doing this. And his doctor said, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and issue him some more medication. Within 3 weeks, that young man was dead from an overdose. So and you don't hear about the overdose because, we don't put that stuff in the paper, but it happens way too much here in Lee County and across our state nation. So, our guys are carrying the Narcan now that will revive people that overdose. And William here saved a young man's life about 6 weeks ago?
Probably 6, 8 weeks ago.
So it does work.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I find it funny because, I recently graduated from college like 10, 15 years ago, and the valedictorian of our class in the last few weeks, I knew him very well, very good friend of mine, passed because of the same thing. So it's not, and he came from ultra high-end upbringing. One of the most brilliant kids I ever knew. And it's affecting everywhere. I mean, it's all the way from the bottom to the very top.
Well, you have
And
some
it's-
legitimate issues that begin, that start, all right? You have people that have gone in, and good people, back surgery, just like you said, you had an oral surgery done. It was an outpatient type thing, and they prescribed you 50?
Yeah.
50. So if you look, the statistics,
We've already made some money.
the statistics are high. Your dependency on these drugs for taking them for so many dosages for so many days, your dependency percentages get higher. It basically will tell you if you continue to take this for more than 4 days as prescribed, your dependency level on this drug will increase by 75%. Wow. So, but nobody knows that because nobody really goes and tells you. I mean, we've all had, broken bones and things like that, and we've had to have some type of pain medication. But we've had situations where people were honestly good people that had back surgery. I mean, I have a friend, well, he's deceased now, but that's how it started for him. He was a roofer, and he fell off a ladder with a rack of shingles backwards, broke his back and his femur. And he was a very good, athlete and everything. And he went from pills to heroin, and then he died. And that's, there's some that go out and actually look to get high, but then you have some who are there and where they're at because of legitimate, pre-existing injuries and things like that. But the biggest thing is, and I think the reason that it's so easy for people to is because, I've been to some of the seminars and stuff taught by doctors and psychologists, and as children, at his age, anything that we give him that he can take through his mouth, no one associates it as bad for him. Now, you think nasty, shooting at the needle, smoking it in a pipe. Most people think, oh, that's nasty. But you really don't think hard about, well, can this hurt me? Because it's a pill. I've been taking baby aspirin. I Flintstone vitamins as I was little. You don't, associate it being, bad for you most of the time if you can take it by mouth. And that's what we see in a lot of instances is people who have had problems in the past with some type of injury, but then you have kids that are in high school that are looking just to party, and then good kids, great parents, and not being judgmental. I mean, it happens. It happens across the board. To the best of us, it's to the worst of us. I mean, there are people that, you would never imagine. And a lot of times, it's under the radar for the longest time. When they start dabbling in it, well, I didn't know. Well, you're not going to know to begin with. Until the dependency on that drug starts getting higher, things start missing. The kid starts acting different. And that's the reason we always, we emphasize when people come in and let's just say, we're having basically like a small intervention with a young kid. We always tell that parent, and any time that I get a chance to talk to parents, you're a parent. I'm a cop. I get paid to be nosy. You're a parent. You have nothing but, all your investment in your child should be as nosy as I am. I mean, you should be in their phone. You should be in their tablets. You should be in their room. You should be on their PC, seeing what they're doing, seeing who they're talking to. Because that's the first level of defense is in the home. And, we can sit here and we can school kids on drugs, and it's just a choice. Sometimes it's a tragic choice that they made. We've all grown up and we've had things in our life that are happening, and all it takes is one bad choice to completely turn your life opposite of what, your parents and everyone else around you thought that you could or should have been. But that's one of the biggest things that we do a lot of times with kids that are just now getting into medicine and eating pills, what we call it, just eating pills and trying to party, is a lot of times we have to try to sit down with them and talk to them and have those discussions. But now it's moved on to fentanyl, which is dangerous for everybody. It's taking the lives of not only the user, it's taking the lives of law enforcement officers. I think there was a case where a law enforcement officer had to revive his partner and his canine in the middle of the search. Because from what I understand is, depending on the potency of the fentanyl, it can take 1 microgram and put you overboard. That's
It's
how
on
strong
your
this
hands.
stuff is. Yep, the dust, you could open up the door on a car, or you could just, waft the dust. And it's that strong.
Wow.
That next thing you know, you got your buddies inside the car and facing the dirt, and you don't know what happened to him. So they had put the dog in the car. The dog did a canine search. The guy hand searched behind the dog. Next thing you know, the dog's laid over here, the guy's laid over here. And it's that strong. So yeah, and that's some of the dangerous stuff, the most dangerous stuff that we're encountering now. We haven't had any issues as far as personnel in our department, but there's been a couple of times, I mean, if somebody tells you after you walk through a little briar thicket, man, you just walk right through that poison, what's the first thing that happens? Starting to itch. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we've had some instances on car stops and stuff and had information this guy's mixing fentanyl because his heroin, natural, what he has, heroin is either one beat down and not the potency isn't that strong and his drug isn't that good, so he's mixing the fentanyl with it to increase the high on his drug that he's selling. But we've had a couple instances. We arrested one guy because William got called out on a Friday night on an overdose. He went with that patient. I'll let you tell that story if you want to.
So essentially that night I got called to one. While I was out on that one, EMS had administered Narcan on this young man, and he was revived, and they were en route to the hospital with him. Of course, I was going to the hospital to try to interview him to see if he was willing to give us any information as to where the drugs he had gotten came from. As I'm en route to that one, the second one comes out, and lo and behold, before I go home, a third one the same night. So then it was a late night that night. So that late night, we had been working a case on a guy. We had some controlled buys from him. We'd been buying from this guy. We knew he was a bad guy. We knew he was putting a lot of this stuff out in the streets. I called him about it late that night. Hey, sorry to be calling you this late, but we need to do something. We know that one of the guys ended up cooperating and say, yes, it comes from this guy. Next morning, we do an early morning operation. We get up, we set up on the guy's house, we watch him leave. As he's leaving the house, we already had secured warrants for his arrest on the previous controlled purchases from him for heroin.
Which was within 24 hours of the two.
Right, of the overdose. When he leaves, the young man, very familiar with law enforcement, I'd sent him to prison before on separate drug cases, sees the deputies get behind him and is familiar. He starts ripping open bags of what we believe to be heroin and possibly fentanyl and shaking them out the window as he's running from us in his vehicle. So this stuff was all over the side of the car, all over the A-pillars, inside the car on him. I mean, he was just, it was everywhere. So needless to say, we get him secured best we can. Of course, we have our Narcan there with us because we're thinking, hey, this is going to be us at this point. I mean, we're exposed.
Because that's the point that I was talking about when you walk through that little patch of briars and somebody said you walk through poison, everybody starts, I feel funny. But you don't really feel funny. You just, do I feel funny? Should I feel like this? And you walk in and you're like,
really gets your attention because just previously, if you Google law enforcement overdosing, there was a gentleman out in Ohio, had a guy that he stopped as a rear passenger of the car, had a bag of powdered substance with him. He dumped it in the floorboard, smushed it with his foot, trying to get rid of it, a very small amount, user amount. Officer goes in behind that guy. He's searching the car for some more. Gets some heroin up on his, heroin and fentanyl up on his uniform. Looked like dust to the other officer. They drag the guy back down there and get him. He's on his computer and he's putting him in to get him over to the jail. And the other officer looks at him like, man, you got completely dirty out there searching that car. And the guy's like, oh yeah. Does this, goes back to typing his report and overdose, falls out of the chair. So they get him revived and did some samples on him and tested positive for fentanyl and heroin. So just that little bit of an exposure. So that's some of the concerns that we're having to face these days. One, the inhalation issue of it, but also the absorption of it.
So when that guy was running from you guys, shaking it out the window, he had two purposes: one to get rid of it, and one to expose you guys to it.
Well, I think it's just more to get rid of it. When we very delicately searched the car, basically it was just a looking sweep through the car, shut the doors, tape the door up, put a sticker on it, and we towed the vehicle. Just to not take a chance. Wow. We didn't want to dig too far in it, but because he was what we really wanted.
We wanted him off the street. Yeah. I mean, so the car was just such a hazard. The thing we decided to do that day was just really photograph everything as well as we could, show that the substance was all over the car. on him, you know, at least on his pants and things. We got him secured and taken away, and we seized the car and put it in a locked up facility.
But if there's anything that you guys think as far as what you do in the communities and stuff that could help in forwarding some of this information into the communities, I mean, we'd be more than happy to help you in whatever way. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Is the justice system set up, so you just talked about this guy you finally got off the street. Is our justice system set up right now to process these people quickly and get them behind bars, or is it a revolving door for you guys?
So it's both at times.
Yeah.
When we have individuals like this, the DA's office is usually pretty good about targeting those people, and hopefully he's going to be targeted and we'll get a good sentence.
Yeah.
In addition to that, after that arrest, we also went back to his house that we watched him leave, executed a search warrant, got an additional amount of trafficking heroin, as well as a firearm, in which he was a prohibited person, being that he was a convicted felon previously. So there's a lot of things on the table with him, which gives the prosecutor's office a really good leg to stand on to really put this guy away and use him possibly as an example to move, to get the message out to other folks that participate in the same things, to say, hey, this is not going to be allowed here, you know. So I think we'll, you know, in certain situations, their criminal histories may not support them being processed quickly and getting the amount of time that we, the community, would like to see. But it also, again, is a process in getting them to where they need to be to become habitual offenders or even be indicted federally for some of the heroin and things like that.
Let me say one more thing before I turn over to Doug. Please tell your children and your grandchildren that popping pills is a hard drug. It's probably the hardest drug that's out there right now. And and Brian alluded to this, a lot of people, a lot of young people don't think it's a big deal to pop a pill. Well, they might as well be smoking crack or shooting heroin, because it's a terrible, terrible addiction. It's a hard addiction to break. There are success stories, but it's a tough addiction. And so the key is, let's get this upcoming generation educated so that they're not popping pills. And I'm not at all making light of alcohol and marijuana. They need to stay away from that too. If they'll put off drinking until they're old enough to drink, they probably won't have a problem with it. But kids think that popping pills is not a big deal. It is a big deal, and you don't hear about many young people smoking crack right out of the gate because they know that's not something I want to do. They don't think popping a pill is a big deal. It is a big deal. So every chance you get to tell kids that, please do that.
And another
thing,
we have SROs that are there that talk to the kids about that. School resource officer.
One thing
These
that we also do tell people is, all right, do not leave pain medication laying around. If you had a procedure and it's been within the first, you're done with it. You're 4 weeks out past the procedure, you're not using it anymore, don't save it. Get rid of it. You can take it to Walgreens.
We still have a drop box as well.
We have a drop box in the front. Walgreens, all these other pharmacies have where you can take these medications back to, because all you're doing is basically like leaving a loaded pistol on the table for your kid and not giving them the education not to mess with it. And that's just my advice. If you have something at home, you have kids at home, and you're not using it anymore, discard it. Then you don't have to worry about it.
One thing, and I promise you I'll make it very quick, because I know with you guys, there's a handout that came to you guys. It's something that I know you all are involved heavily in these organizations, probably others, maybe in your churches, however you would want to look at it. With this, there's a youth pledge as well as an adult pledge to living a drug-free life. Take these, make copies of them. There's some extra copies.
I gave him.
He has them. If you need it, get a copy of it. You can find it online as well. If you can't, get in touch with me there. Start introducing this to maybe your Sunday school classes or to whatever organizations you are. This is the first step to getting that knowledge in the minds of these young people that this is a bad way to live and that they should be living the right way, and let it continue to expand and spread this information to them so that they in time are sharing it with those little ones that are around them. And I'd be interested to know where it goes to, if you guys want to provide any feedback through through the people on the board and maybe back to us. Try to expose as many as you can and get them to sign these pledges and live by it. There's some words on here on the front of it, and there's some oaths under it for the adults as well. And it's you being a support role and making sure that education gets out to those young people.
And thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Got to turn it over to Jeff here.
All right, we got $82 today, so 41 to the winner.
Okay, folks, the lucky ticket, last 4 digits, 6317. 6317.
All right. What I'd like to do with that is have Jim match it.
There you go.
I like that. Al, would you do the 4-way test for us?
Four-way test. First.
We're all concerned. Build goodwill, better friendships, be better national concerns. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.